Hey everybody, this is Jason from the Millie Paramilitary 2 Para 3 Club. And before we start, I wanted to remind you that the shortcut to happiness is 6 easy steps. All you need is a knife, a bag of money, and a computer. And you too can turn that bag of money into a second knife and you'll be happy. So good luck out there. Now we got that out of the way, I want to talk about a knife that I have on loan from my friend Jake from Bearded Gear. This is a knife that I honestly have never seen in person, and I've heard good things, but I've never touched one, and I wanted to check it out. He was kind enough to send it on loan. This is an Olamic Wayfarer. The model is the 247S, and I wonder if they say 24/7. I bet they do. This particular model is a very interesting knife. To start with, when I pulled it out of the package, I was like, wow, cool, this is really unlike most knives that I've held lately. And I appreciate that about a designer when they, I don't know, we don't all have to make the same thing, right? And I like the fact that they're making something that's very different. The second I flicked it and I held it in my hand, I just understood why Jake is such a fan of these. This is such a comfortable knife in the hand. This really makes you want to just go find things to cut so that you can test it, because it's really, truly excellent. My favorite part of the knife is the back part of the handle. This curve right here is just exciting because it makes it so comfortable in the palm of your hand. And I've got lots and lots of pinky grip. And the more I play with knives and the more knives I touch, the more I realize that pinky grip is kind of the secret weapon. If you can pin this knife to the palm of your hand effectively, then you have more dexterity at the front of the knife with which you can control the blade, and you're going to be way happier for it. So that's hats off to the designer of this knife for that part. I just did some quick reading on the internet about Olamic overall because I'm such a neophyte, and I found that these are a bearing system on the pivot. M390 steel is standard across the line, and then something I particularly enjoyed was on the website they actually have a customizer where you can basically point and click to all the features that you want on your knife, and you can build a custom knife right there on the website. Below that link, or below that area, there's lots and lots of photos of example knives where you can see what other people have built, and then from that you can pull out the options that you really enjoy. And I don't know, there's just something fun about that build your own knife. It felt like I was a Build-A-Bear. And not to insult the knife company by comparing it to toys, but you get the idea, right? You guys have been to Build-A-Bear. I'm sure you've been there, right? You built Mama Bear, or at least. So lots of different cool options. Like, for example, you can choose on the scales, you can choose multiple different textures. You can choose multiple different configurations, whether you want it flat or whether you want it with holes, whether you want it molten, whether you want it to look like rock. Same with the backspacer, same with the clip. The blade comes in, I believe, 8 different tips, or 8 different styles of blade, including Damasteel. So this one is called a sheep's cliff, which is a clever idea. It's basically very, very much like a Wharncliffe, but also like a sheep's foot. Kind of a cool blade, I won't lie. Definitely thin behind the edge, but still very, very strong with a nice fat spine running down the length of the blade. And they did lots of weight relieving wherever they could. So here we have a grind on either side of the blade, sort of taking away material to make it lighter weight, but definitely it's beefy where you want it. So you're never going to have a failure of this knife at the pivot, or really a failure along the blade length. I bet they've never had one warp because it's really not well done. The lockup has a lock bar insert, which is swell. Lately, I've been reading some blowback about whether or not that's necessary. Whether or not it's necessary, I think, is subjective. And to me, what really matters is this interface going to be dialed in or is it not? And if you have an insert, you have the ability to customize that after the fact. And as the knife wears in, you have the ability to customize that. For knives that don't have it, I'm noticing that there's only so much you can do given the materials that you have at hand, and sometimes dialing them in isn't possible. If you look down inside the knife, that's kind of a nice touch. We have a serial number, and we have the model number, we have the name of the model, It's all right there in a place it's easy to find, but also it's not very conspicuous. I've noticed, for example, on Benchmade knives that they will often fill the blade with laser engravings of where it was made or what it is or first production, and I'm not a fan of that. I like a maker's mark, and then I want the blade to pretty much be left alone. We do have an M390 mark right here, signifying the steel. It's not my favorite steel, but it's hard to argue that it's not the best steel out there. Overall, it's just something for everyone. Great edge retention, stainless. It's also fairly tough, so great choice for an all-around steel. I appreciate the pocket clip design. I can't say it's my style personally. It's when I talked to Jake about his knife, I referred to it as a little Flintstone for my taste. I do appreciate it, but it's just not for me. One example that I do really like about it is I like the ball bearing going through the clip. That is really cool, right? You know what that means? It means it's going to glide over your blue jeans, fellas. It's not going to get caught on the seam. Sometimes these knives can get a little too aggressive with their pocket clip, and they can be a pain in the butt to get in and out of the pocket. I also like that it rides on the scale instead of riding on the lock. So I happen to have an example of a knife where that's a problem, and that would be the Spyderco Drunken. I love this knife, but good grief, why would the clip ride on the lock bar? That's just not a good idea. So if I squeeze here, the knife's not going to open. Not ideal, right? So given the price of this knife and the consideration that went into engineering every part of it, I'm really surprised that the manufacturer would miss that. That's a big problem. Don't have that issue over here. Here we have a really thoughtfully designed clip. So I imagine, given the number of options that Olamic has on their website, it would probably be really easy, to swap this out and then get a different one. Back here we have a really interesting mount system for the way that the clip attaches to the knife. You can see these little standoffs are back there. I like that. I haven't seen a lot of people do that. Most of the time you're going to see a bend where the foot comes back and touches the top of the knife, but here we have these standoffs. So I don't know if it's good or bad. I think it's probably customizable. Perhaps you can get different sizes. That would be swell. But more than that, it's just there's a million ways to do this, right? We don't all have to do it the same way. So just different and interesting. The weight of the knife, according to this website, is 4.9 ounces. So 4.9 ounces is not a lot. As reference, a Koenig Arius is going to be 4.9 ounces. A Spyderco Paramilitary 2 is going to weigh about 3.9 ounces. So it is heavier than that knife. It's about the same as an Arius. So really not heavy, but pretty decent weight. For many of you who are watching this video, you're probably Spyderco fans. What's up, fellas? If you've ever purchased any Flytanium scales and put them on your knife, you're going to find that a Paramilitary 2 with titanium is about 5.2 ounces. So imagine that. That's what this weighs. So not a lightweight knife, but definitely not heavy either. The detent is pretty firm. So this is not a knife that you're going to false start. You really have to put some pressure on the flipper to get it to open. And then the lock bar really lines up nice. The lock feels secure. This definitely doesn't feel like it's going to accidentally push over. There's enough area here for you to get your fingers on it to get it open and closed without really stressing yourself out. There are some knives in the market where there's nothing to grip or there's too much to grip, but this one is just right. So this is really a treat to hold. I'm really excited that I was able to hold it. I think that the finish is clever. I really think that's clever. I like the way that it's assembled. The back spacer echoing the clip is cool. I also appreciate that there's a million options available. So if you want to make your own knife, you really truly can. So I suppose this company would be considered a mid-tech company. I could be wrong on that. I'm willing to say I'm wrong if I'm wrong. but given what they have available, the pricing seems to be in the range of $500 to $1,500, depending on the options that you pick. So if you're considering a Chris Reeve knife, and you want something that's just a little more refined than your typical, I don't know, relatively inexpensive pocket knives, you want like that next level mid-tech, I would highly recommend that you look at these. I can imagine that a Chris Reeve fan would find this knife to be many things that they like about their Chris Reeve. You know, we've got a great lock, we've got a nice firm flipper, we have a really stout, robust blade stock that's not going to fail you. Really excellent pocket design for the clip, and then all titanium on the handle. So really killer. So I enjoyed checking this knife out. I think it's great. I'm really excited to play with the website more, and I would really like to see some of the other designs that are out there, and sort of educate myself more about these Olamics. So that's pretty much it for my my first take on the Olamic. I'm going to carry it for a little while. I'm going to try it out, and if I have any new revelations, I'll come back and tell you guys about it. So I need to give it a try and see how it cuts, right? And ultimately, that's what matters the most. Well, thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching the video. If you'd like to talk more about knives, we talk about Spydercos in our Spyderco group, but we also talk about lots of other knives too. It's a community for people that are passionate about knives, and we welcome you to join. Again, we're the Millie Paramilitary 2 Para 3 Club. You're going to find us on Facebook and Instagram, and we're getting bigger all the time, so please join us. Thanks for watching.